Hey, hello, Nick Digilio here. Hey, all right, subscribe to my YouTube page, my YouTube channel, which I think you did if you're watching this, and thank you for watching. So, last night I got up in the middle of the night. I've got a weird sleeping schedule, even though I haven't been doing the overnight shifts on the radio for over a year now. I still have that weird night owl schedule that I'm on. I've actually been on my whole life, even before I started working overnights on the radio. So I get up in the middle of the night sometimes and I'll just pop on the TV. And last night late, I turned on the TV and Silver Bullet was on cable. This is the werewolf movie based on the Stephen King story. Actually, really, really entertaining movie with one of the Hamster or the other one, Corey Haim. Yeah, it's Corey Haim. Feld Dog and the Hamster. Remember the Feld Dog and the Hamster? The two Corys? Oh, boy. Anyway, so it's the Hamster. And Gary Busey is in it. It's a very entertaining movie. And Gary Busey's in it. And the reason why I'm doing this video here is because if you did listen to me on the air over the years, you probably know that I actually spent a week hanging out with Gary Busey. I did. And I'm here. It's astonishing, but I'm alive to talk about it now. And I did. I hung out with Gary Busey for a week. He liked me for some reason. So this was the fall of 1992. And I was dating a girl who I'd met at a clothing store in the Century Mall over on Clark near Diversey. Because I was, at that time, we were just about to launch Roy Leonard's magazine, Roy Leonard's Going Out Guide, and I was managing editor, and I wrote for it, and put it together for the publisher and for Roy. And we were having our big launch party. The very first issue was coming out in October of 1992, and we had a big party scheduled. That we were going to big launch party, and they wanted me to look good because see, this is normally how I dress. So they were like, you should probably not look like a jagoff, at the opening. So I had really long hair at the time. They're like, pull your hair back, blah, blah, blah. We'll get you some clothes. So they took me, and I can't remember the name of the place, but they took me to some clothing store in the Century. And the girl who came up to show me some of the clothing was astonishingly hot. And I asked her out on a date. And she said yes. So we started dating. And she was way out of my league, like way, way out of my league. And she was a girl, we were both in our 20s at the time. I was I think I was 27 or something like that. And I think she was 24 or 25. So we were young. And she was very hot and liked going to clubs, which was not my thing. Even when I was in my 20s, I preferred old man dive alcoholic bars as opposed to going to dance clubs and stuff like that. But, hey, whatever she wanted to do, I would do because she was hot and I had no business being with her. So anyway, she enjoyed China Club. Back when China Club was still around. Not there anymore, but there were those days when there were the dance clubs over near Fulton. There were a lot of nightclubs around there, China Club being one of them. And it was always a destination, place. So we went to China Club. And we went there a couple of times. One night we go to China Club, and we walk over to the VIP room. There was, obviously the velvet rope VIP room that, you probably can't get into. And we walked up to there, and because she's hot, we got in, and the guy opened up the thing, let her in, and then saw that, she's like, oh, he's with me. And the door guys were just pissed. They were like, what is this jagoff doing with this girl? And they had to let me in because, I was with the hot chick. So we'd gotten into China Club a couple of times in that way because she was a babe and I was just with her. So we go into the private room one night, fall of, I want to say probably October-ish of 92. We walk into the VIP room, and standing across the room, it wasn't really crowded. It was a big room. A couple of bars in there, tables, some booths and stuff. We walk in, and standing across the room, talking to some people, was Gary fucking Busey. And this is Gary Busey. Now, you got to understand, this was fall of 1992, so it was about a year after Point Break came out. And I've been a fan of Gary Busey, forever, since A Star Is Born. I remember he had a very small part in A Star Is Born. He kicks ass in it. Obviously, Buddy Holly's story, stuff like Barbarossa and Carney, DC Cab, stuff like that. Lethal Weapon, not a fan, loved him in it. Predator 2, he's awesome in Predator 2. And so many other things that he was great in, and so, but fresh off of Point Break, like Point Break, Angelo Pappas, one of the greatest characters fucking ever, and he's amazing in that movie. I remember the first time I saw Point Break, and which of maybe a million times I've seen Point Break since it's a goddamn masterpiece. It's one, when his character gets killed in Point Break, sorry, spoiler, but he gets killed. When his character gets killed in Point Break, every single time I've seen it in the theater, the entire audience just goes, oh! Like it's, when you go and see a movie and a character dies in it or gets killed and you love the character and everybody in the room is like, no, you can't kill that guy! Angelo Pappas' death in Point Break is way up there near the top of, God damn it, why did you kill that character moments in movie history. And he was just great in Point Break. Loved him in Point Break. I think one of his best roles ever. So anyway, I was like, shit, that's Gary Busey. He rules. And so the girl I was with was like, yeah, okay, that's cool, So we go and grab a drink, and I kept looking over, and I was like, I got to go over and talk to him. And she's like, okay, I'll be here. And she knew some other people in there and some other, she was a hot chick, so she knew other hot chicks. They had, there's this sensory thing that hot chicks have where they like, if they're in another state, they can still go do and go, yes, hot chicks, we can communicate via signals of our brains and not speak. So she knew the hot chicks all know each other. So anyway, she's like, yeah, I'll go talk to the hot chicks in the other side of the room. You jag off, just go talk to Gary Busey. So I walk over to Gary Busey, and he's like having a conversation, and I just kind of like go, excuse me, hey, and he turns, yeah. And I'm like, listen, I just wanted to say, and because I was in the VIP room, I think it was a little easier for me to approach him, because like I had to pass some standard. I got into the VIP room of the China Club. Little did he know that I was just a jagoff with a hot girlfriend. But anyway, I guess he thought it was okay to talk to me because I was in the VIP room. And I was like, I just want to say, man, you're great. You're awesome. I've loved you since A Star Is Born. I think you're great. He's like, thank you, man. I appreciate it. And I was like, you were so good in all these other movies. And I go, I just want to mention, man, Point Break. You're so great in Point Break. I love that movie. And, I don't want to bother you, but, man, I watched that movie. At that point, it just came out on VHS or something. And I had probably watched it, a million times by that point. It had been on VHS. And I was like, I watch it all the time. It's one of my favorite movies of all time, and you're amazing. And he's like, Point Break. Point Break. Man, that movie fucking changed my life. So I was like, oh, all right. He's like, what's your name? I said, it's Nick. He's like, all right, Nicky. Call me Nicky. I'm not going to, I hate it when people call me Nicky. I stopped being called Nicky when I was about 12. Like, stop it. Because I have a father whose name is Nick, so I was always Nicky. And then it became Little Nick, and it's still Little Nick to some of my family members, but not Nicky. Hey, Nicky. But he called me Nicky, and when Gary Busey calls you Nicky, you let him call you Nicky. So anyway, he's like, let me tell you something. Come here. Get a drink. And I'm like, all right, I'll get a drink. So I get a drink. He's like, put that on my tab, So we walk over. He walks away from the people. We walk over, and we are at a table, and we're kind of leaning on the table. It was one of those higher tables, with the stools next to it. And so we're kind of standing there, and he goes, let me tell you something about Point Break. That fucking movie changed my life. Changed my life. Catherine Bigelow, goddess. Goddess. She's a goddess. And I'm like, yes, I met Catherine Bigelow. And I did meet Catherine Bigelow. She came to town to promote Blue Steel. I met her and Jamie Lee Curtis at the same time. And to say that I had an erection for 4 months after that is slightly undertelling it. So anyway, he's like, she's goddess. Goddess! And I'm like, all right. And he's like, you don't understand. That movie changed my goddamn life. I was on a road. I was on a dark road. I was on a road. I don't know where the road was going, but it was going somewhere. And I didn't know what to do. And then I got to park. It changed my life. It changed my life, Nicky. Nicky, it changed my life. And I'm like, okay, man. Shit, cool. So, this was the first conversation I ever had with him. He really, literally, would get up close, kind of grab my shoulder sometimes. And so this was the first conversation I had with him, and it was the first of many during that entire week. Because I hung out with him, for 7 nights straight. And I had to get used to it. And by the 6th or 5th night, I was like, okay, he's screaming in my face. He's calling me Nicky, and he's going, and I'm like, all right, that's cool. I got it now. I understand. So, by the way, there was this show that Adam De La Plana did. He was a comedy writer. He did a show called I'm with Busey, which was a sort of reality comedy show on Comedy Central back in the early 2000s. There was only one season, it was 13 episodes. And I watched that, and it actually, as crazy as the show was, and I'm sure that some of it was rehearsed and redone, it was pretty close to what it was like to hang out with Gary Busey. I'm not lying. It's an insane show, crazy reality show. Some of it might be bullshit, but it was pretty close. So anyway, he's like, Point Break changed my goddamn life, I'm telling you right now, Nicky. And I'm like, all right. And he's like, I'll tell you right now. Patrick Swayze, he is the fucking Bodhisattva. He is the Bodhisattva. And I'm like, all right, Gary, let me tell you something. I would never, ever think of jumping out of a goddamn airplane. But I did 3 times. And I'm like, okay, you jumped out of an airplane 3 times. So he's telling me his story. He's like, I was on that road. You know what? The road was gone. It was freedom. I saw lights. After I did that movie, I saw lights. And I hung out with Gary. And I hung out with Patrick Swayze. And Swayze is the Bodhisattva. I call the Bodhisattva. I can call the Bodhisattva right now. And I will go and call him now and come back. And I'm like, no, you don't have to do that. No cell phones at that time. He could have just asked for a phone, China Club, and called up the Bodhisattva. Although I think he meant just like, call! So anyway, so that was the first, he's like grabbed me, he's like, I don't know, you have no idea what that movie meant to me and how much it changed my life. I like you, Nicky. What do you like to do? And I'm like, So we're talking a little bit, we get into the whole thing, like what I do, and I told him, just started writing and being a managing editor for this magazine. I review movies on the radio, and, and he's like, oh, that's cool, man. Good for you. I'll be right back. Boom, he's gone. And that was also something he did a lot. He did a lot of, I'll be right back. And he would go off to the bathroom. And then he'd come back. Now, I don't know what he did in the bathroom. I never went to the bathroom with him in the nights that I hung out with him. I don't know. Anyway, I don't know for a fact. But he seemed a little even more charged when he would get back from the bathroom. So I'll be right back. That happened a lot. So he took a liking to me. We hung out. I introduced him to my girlfriend at the time, he was very impressed with that. Oh, she's a good-looking lady, Nicky. So time goes by. So that night ends. At the end of the night, he's like, listen, Nicky, you want to hang out tomorrow night? I'm shooting this movie. So he was shooting a movie. The movie that he was shooting while he was in town was Rookie of the Year, which is a fucking terrible movie. With that jagoff from American Pie. He was a little kid. He breaks his arm, and then he can throw the ball real hard, and then he pitches for the Cubs. Terrible movie. Anyway, Gary Busey he's in that movie. If you've seen the movie, I think, if I'm not mistaken, he plays a pitcher in the movie. I don't know. I haven't seen it in years. He plays a pitcher or a pitching coach. Oh, and a little interesting tidbit. If you watch Rookie of the Year, you've seen it. The mustache that Gary Busey has in that movie, it's fake. He didn't have a mustache. It's fake. So... I don't know if he can grow one. I think he can. I think I've seen him with facial hair. But anyway, he didn't have... The mustache was not... In real life, he didn't have it. So he was shooting that movie. He's like, I got to shoot the movie tomorrow, but I'll see you later. And I'm like, all right. So he gave me his number. He was staying at the Westin Hotel across the street from the Hancock Building. That's where he was staying, the Westin. So he gave me his hotel room phone number and everything. I gave him my number, which I believe was a mistake. And so that we can get in touch if we wanted to hang out. So... the next day, he calls me, Nicky! And I'm like, yeah. He's like, I'm done shooting at 10. Let's meet at China Club. And I'm like, all right. Now, he was on the phone, so I'm just assuming he was this close to the phone when he was talking. So I'm like, all right. So I call my girlfriend. I'm like, hey, you want to go to China Club tonight? She's like, well, I guess. And I'm like, I'm going to meet Gary Busey there. She's like, oh. So we go. She gets me into the VIP room. We go in. Go, there's Gary. Get Nicky! Nicky, come here, man. Whatever he wants, get him on the tab. So he puts my drinks on the tab. I walk up to him, and we're just hanging out. We're talking. And he's like, it was a rough day on the set. Rough day on the set today. Only did 2 of the 9 scenes we were supposed to do, Nicky. Very upsetting. Every time I do that, I gotta sit in a corner, man, and I gotta think. I gotta go off, and I gotta think. I was dead for 12 minutes. He just pulls that out of his ass, out of nowhere. I was dead for 12 minutes. And I'm thinking, you were dead, what, today? At Wrigley? In the dugout? Did you die? And then, of course, he was referring to his motorcycle accident. He had a motorcycle accident back in the late 80s. And now he's like he has been for years an advocate for, helmet laws. Because he had a terrible accident. He split his skull open, busted his head open, had to have, brain surgery, and talked about it, man, they had to peel my skin down over my face, He's like, I was dead for 12 minutes. So he was apparently dead for 12 minutes. And it's not like if there's an advocate for using a helmet while riding a motorcycle, I think it's Gary Busey. So anyway, so he's like, yeah, I was dead for 12 minutes. And out of nowhere, he's telling me this. When I came back, I saw angels. The light was there, and I've been guided by those angels ever since. And that's what brought me to Point Break. He brings up Point Break again. So now I've got the whole dead thing, skin across the face. He's telling me all this, and we're drinking and having it. And so I noticed out of the corner of my eye, there's a group of girls on the other side of the room. And for some reason, my girlfriend, I think at that point, actually, my girlfriend left. Yeah, I think she did. And she's like, I'm leaving. And I'm like, well, I'm going to hang out with Gary Busey, which is a big mistake. You got a really, really enormously hot girl who is out of your league. You leave with her. You don't fucking stay with Gary Busey. This is the kind of idiot I am. I had an incredibly attractive woman say, hey, let's go. And I went, I'm hanging with Gary Busey. Don't you understand? Moron. So anyway, I think she was gone. And I look over, and on the other side of the room, there's another group of hot chicks. And they're kind of giggling and pointing in our direction. They clearly recognize Gary Busey. So they kind of, and so this goes on for a few minutes. We're having a conversation. Nikki, I was dead for 12 minutes. This is going on. And then on the other side of the room, these girls, so they send like a representative over. Like one of the girls comes over, and they're like, oh, hee. They send her over, and they kind of scoot over. She comes up and goes, hi, to Gary. Hi, listen, I just wanted to say that we're really big fans. And Gary's like, oh, hello. And he sees these girls, and they're all really hot. And he's like, how you doing? And so he shakes her hand. I can't remember what her name is. She introduces herself. She's like, we're really big fans. And, why are you here in Chicago? And he's like, I'm making a movie over at Wrigley Field. And so she's like, oh, that's really cool. We just wanted to say that we really love you in 48 hours. So there's a long pause. And Gary Busey goes, what'd you say? And she goes, we loved you in 48 hours. You were so good in 48 hours, you and Eddie Murphy. And he goes, that wasn't me, goddammit. And I'm like, whoa, that wasn't me, goddammit. Goddammit, that was Nick Nolte. That was Nick Nolte, goddammit, it wasn't me. I was nominated for an Academy Award for the Buddy Holly story, goddammit. Get it straight, that was Nick Nolte, not me! She's like, and she just kind of like, and kind of like walks away. And he's like, goddammit, that happens all the time, he says to me. Goddammit, that happens all the time. I'll be right back. And he goes off to the bathroom. So I'm like, Jesus Christ. And, I wanted to go over and apologize. Hey, listen, I'm sorry. Because he went nuts. He was like in her face screaming, I'm not Nick Nolte. I got nominated for an Academy Award. He threw that in there. So he's off to the bathroom. He comes back. He goes, God damn it, that happens all the time. And he goes, Nick Nolte, one of my best friends in the world. All right, cool. All right, so I ended up a couple of times going back to his hotel room. We drank. There were a couple of other people there, a few other people to show up. It was just like one of these, let's get drunk in a hotel room. I take a cab home. So because I, at the time, was, obviously reviewing movies, I would get invites to movies. And I got an invite to see Under Siege. And Warner Brothers was screening it at the Esquire Theater, which happened to be a block and a half away from the Westin, where Gary Busey was staying, right over at Russian Oak. So I got an invite, from Warner Brothers. Hey, Gary Busey, or Under Siege. That's the Steven Seagal movie with Tommy Lee Jones, where they're on the boat, and and he has to, beat terrorists' ass, and Erica Laniak is naked and comes out of a cake, and Gary Busey, Tommy Lee Jones basically play the villains in it. And they're screening it. So I call up Busey in his hotel room. What do you need, Nicky? And I'm like, hey, Gary, guess what, man? They're screening tonight. They're screening Under Siege at the Esquire. It's right down the street from where you're staying. He's like, what? Again, I assume he's this close to the phone. So, what? And I said, yeah, they're screening Under Siege right down, tonight. And he's like, who is? And I said, I guess Warner Brothers is screening it. And he's like, I didn't know about it. I didn't know anything about it. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm sorry, but they're screening it. And he's like, well, I don't know, I got to get in. Do you think I can get in? And I'm like, dude, you're in the movie. I'm reasonably sure that you can if I can get into the screening, you're in the fucking movie. I'm pretty sure you can get in. He's like, all right, well, listen, man, I don't want to. And I said, well, look, if if you don't feel right about calling up Warner Brothers and saying, hey, I'm one of the stars of the fucking movie, can I see it? You can come in with me. It's a +1. I got a it admits two. He's like, can I go? And I'm like, yeah. All right, well, meet me at the hotel. And I'm like, all right. So I met him at the hotel, go up to his room, we have a couple of drinks, and we walk over to the Esquire. We go in, I show him a pass, I go in, and I'm about to see Under Siege with Gary Busey. And none of this really sinks in, because this is about the 50 I've been hanging out with this guy. And at this point, it's a blur. We were drinking, and we see the stories and all that shit. And it was just all, at this point, it was just a massive typhoon of being a blur. So I'm not even realizing, I sit down in the theater, and then it struck me. I'm sitting next to Gary Busey, about to watch this movie. And then it struck me. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm watching a Gary Busey movie with Gary Busey next to me. So it finally kind of strikes me. And so the movie starts, and we're watching it, and then he starts talking. Now, he wasn't screaming or really, but he was getting close to me, and he's going, let me tell you something about this scene. And so I'm watching the movie with him, and I'm getting what, in my opinion, was probably the very first full DVD commentary live ever. So I'm watching this movie, Under Siege, at a preview. The movie's not even out yet. I got the star of the movie, one of the stars, Gary Busey, next to me, telling me stories while I'm watching the movie. Steven Seagal. Oh man, what a piece of shit he was. Just a piece of shit. He didn't want to cut his ponytail. You can't be in the Navy with a ponytail. And he's telling me this, and it was it. And he's like, oh man, he was just a piece of shit. Hated working with him. He was a real pain in the ass. Now, I know the director of Under Siege. I didn't know him then, but I know him now, Andy Davis. And Andy Davis confirms it. And I'm sure everybody knows it. Steven Seagal's an asshole. And so Gary Busey's like, he is a total asshole. Piece of shit. So he's going on, and I wouldn't cut his hair. Punch me for real. We rehearsed this scene. So there's a fight scene with him and, Steven Seagal, and Gary Busey's in my ear going, we rehearsed this scene 10 times. He punched me every single time. I almost killed the son of a bitch. And I'm like, all right, okay. So this goes on and on and on. My favorite, though, was when there's a scene where he comes out in drag. Gary Busey comes out in drag. So during that scene, he comes into me, and he goes, I totally came up with this idea. I went up to Andy, and I said, look, I want to wear a dress. I want to dress like a woman. I want to be in drag. Let me be in drag. And this is all in my ear while I'm watching the movie. He's like, yeah. And so I did this. All this was improvised. This whole thing was improvised. And at this point, I'm trying to actually watch the movie and listen to his improvisations, but I got Gary Busey. And Tommy Lee and I, man, he was a dream. Tommy Lee is a dream. Tommy Lee is a dream. And I'm like, all right. He's like, we improvised all this stuff. So this goes on throughout the entire movie. Movie ends, great, right? And people start recognizing him. And then he went off, and there was a lot of people there from Warner Brothers and people that he knew. And I was like, all right, nice to meet you. So I went off to try and, apologize to my hot girlfriend, who, again, I left at home while I was with Gary Busey. So the final night we were together, we were hanging out, and again at China Club, and my girlfriend was there, and we were talking a little bit, and he's like, what do you got going? And I'm like, well, nothing really. And I said, I just got back from a baseball trip, and I had done a baseball trip in late August. My friends and I rented a van, drove to the East Coast, and we went to Cleveland. We went to New York, Yankee Stadium. We went to Boston. We went to the Hall of Fame. We went to Baltimore. All these great places, and drove there and drove back. It was a baseball-themed trip. We went to a bunch of major league games, and we came back. So I told him, I just did this baseball trip. You're making a movie at Wrigley Field. He's like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah. So I went on this baseball trip. It was great. And I was like, yeah, we went to it. And I said, New York, Yankee Stadium, man. Great place, beautiful place. Felt a lot of ghosts there. He said, you want to talk about ghosts? And I'm like, well, I'm just going to say it. I felt a lot of spirits in Yankees. This was the old Yankee